Now, more on the pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli protests at Sydney University. I showed you last night some of the offensive nonsense going down on the campus as a pro-Palestinian student protest group has set up camp in the uni's quadrangle. So I decided to go down and have a look for myself today.
Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free.
As you walk into the quadrangle there at Sydney Uni, the pavement declares you're entering the Gaza camp. There are Palestinian flags and there are protest posters and the slogan "From the river to the sea," which means, of course, the elimination of Israel. And there are plenty of displays relating to socialism too, and for some reason Marxism as well.
All universities must have masks. All universities must have masks. All universities must have masks.
As those chants suggest, they want the university to sever any ties or funding agreements with Israel or defence companies that deal with Israel. But strangely, given the protest is all about attracting attention, the students weren't keen to discuss their views. I just want to have a chat to you. I want to find out about your protest and your cause. None of you want to talk?
You don't consent to being filmed.
Yeah, I'm not talking.
Yeah.
You don't consent to being
Don't consent to being filmed.
Seriously, you've got a protest like this, right? Protest like this, and you don't want to be filmed or share your views. Is that right?
consent to be filmed by you.
Not to you.
Not to. All right. All right. You'll wait for the ABC to turn up, maybe?
It's
SBS?
accessible online if you are particularly interested.
Anybody
It's
else,
not
really.
open for questions.
Just help me out. One question. Could you please show me where there is a poster or a sign that is calling for the release of hostages?
Let's go to the meeting, guys.
This, to say the least, is pretty weak, isn't it? I mean, as Sharry Markson showed us last night, this protest has been calling for intifada. That is the sort of armed insurrection that's killed thousands of Israelis in terrorist attacks over many decades.
Intifada! 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 Thank you.
Yep, they chant for insurrection, but the students are not keen to explain their views or have them questioned. In fact, the only person who engaged in a meaningful chat with me was this man who also insulted me in front of the group. It's Chris Kenny, you got the name right, but there's no need to call me a creep.
The solution, we were up there.
His name is Josh Lees, and the interesting thing is that he's not a student, yet he seems to be pretty influential among the students and within the protest camp. Lees writes for this publication, Red Flag. It's the newspaper or website of the Socialist Alternative. And this is an organisation that calls itself the nation's largest Marxist revolutionary group. Lees is also a spokesperson for the Palestinian Action Group, as he told me. He's organising pro-Palestinian protests right around the country. So much for the students thinking for themselves and organising this protest themselves, hey? What they have put together is clearly a copy of the protests in the United States, and clearly they're being supported by the Palestinian Action Group, whose leadership is linked to the Socialist Alternative. While I was there this morning, they started their daily meeting.
Welcome everybody to the USYD Gaza protest encampment. We're going to get started with our organising meeting today to plan what our next steps are.
Yeah, and as I showed you earlier, one of those next steps was to host a revisionist view of history that diminished Anzac Day and portrayed the Anzacs as marauding imperialists.
The Anzacs played a major role in the violence that established British Mandate Palestine.
It would have been terrific to discuss these issues with the protesters, but it turns out that although their meeting was happening in an open public location, they felt constrained from having their discussion while I was around. All right, so am I interrupting your meeting by being here? All right, well, I'll move on. Could I perhaps just ask one question before I go? And that is why we don't see any posters calling for the release of innocent hostages. No answer. Thank you. Look, we're a free country. That's what the Anzacs and other soldiers have defended over the years. So all points of view have a right to be heard. But when you're afraid to discuss your views, it displays either a lack of understanding, you don't think your views stand up to scrutiny, or it shows a lack of tolerance for the contest of ideas. And if you're talking about the war in Gaza, it seems inconceivable that if you want peace, if you want justice, and you want a resolution, then it seems inconceivable that you would not have as the highest item on your agenda the suffering of innocent Israeli hostages taken by Hamas more than 6 months ago. You know, hostages like this mother and her 2 babies taken by Hamas on October the 7th, feared dead now, but no one knows. No one except Hamas, of course. Why wouldn't university students campaign for the protection of all innocents, for humanity? Why wouldn't they condemn Hamas and demand the release of hostages as the way to deliver peace? And why would they promote views that amount to calling for the destruction and elimination of Israel? We've seen where this division and hatred has led on the campuses in the United States, with Jewish students now advised to stay away. Surely we can't go down that same path here. Sydney University says it respects the rights of all students and staff to express their views. It says it's reached out to Palestinian and Israeli students. And as a precaution, it has increased security. I reckon it would be better off if it comes to sorting out the education of its students. These protests will now spread to other universities in our country. That's undoubtedly what will happen next. The good news is that most likely these protesters represent only a tiny minority of the students on campus. But the worry is that others are too frightened to speak up.